This will all be very familiar to you, I think. First of all, I think everyone already has their phones on mute, so that's not a problem. You are welcome to take them off mute if you want to ask a question or just participate that way. I think most people like to ask questions using the chat window, but you're welcome to do it either way. But please do ask questions. This is a great chance to do it. I also want to give you a heads up that everybody's CPQ environment, when you get into the front end, looks very different. If you see any differences between what you see on my screen and what the environment you work in looks like, it's probably because yours has been customized and mine is out of the box. We will have a job aid for this session. It's just a one-sheet PDF file that will be attached as a resource to the recording, and I'll show you at the end where that is. And of course the session will be recorded, or is being recorded, and will be available in Callidus Cloud University under the replay section within 24 hours, maybe even sooner. Okay, so what we are going to be talking about today is a single feature. So some of the things we've been doing for the last couple of days have been sort of a little bit more broad-based, but this one is very, very specific, and it's generally not a very long class. We usually finish it well within time, so if you do have questions, don't hesitate to ask them, because this is, you're not going to make us go over. So what we're going to do is talk about what guided selling is, and I'll show you an example, and then I'll show you how to set it up and create it so you can make it work in your own environment. But before I get into that, I have a question for all of you guys. So get your typing hand ready, because I'm going to ask you to give me an answer in the chat window. The question is, who here already has experience creating either guided selling in CPQ or just configurable products? And I've had people also answer here that they've created a feature similar to guided selling in other pricing and quoting applications. So I'm going to give you a minute to answer this one, because I just want to get an idea of where everybody is, and then we'll go from there. So even if you don't know what guided selling is, if you've just been at least creating configurable products. Okay. So I've got one says, okay, yes, done configurable products. Have done it with SAP's CPQ application, okay, and then the other one in other CPQ applications. Okay, perfect. That helps a lot. So I think then all of you will know what it is we're going to be doing. So first of all, and part of this is just for the edification of those of you who are watching the recording of this. What is guided selling? Guided selling is basically a way that you can allow people to search for products that have a certain attribute value, so that you can narrow down the results of a search as you select specific attributes that you need. And it also is self-narrowing. So if you select 3 different attribute values that you need, it's only going to find products that have those 3 attributes. We've all seen this hundreds of times when we're doing searches in various online catalogs like Amazon, even eBay, Best Buy, Nordstrom has all of these where you pick certain things that you want. So I'm just going to show you how to set it up in CPQ. Now, I have a little slide here that shows what the finished product would look like. The idea here is, now we're not going to search for laptops, we're going to search for routers. But in this case, let's say we have a guided search for laptops that have particular features. What would happen is you would go into the catalog, you would open up that category, for example, the laptops category, and up in the upper right corner, you're going to see a menu called Guided Selling, and you're going to see a list of all the guided searches there. Okay, so you click on the one that you want, and it comes up with what looks very much like a product configuration. In fact, it looks exactly like one, because that's really what it is, except this time, instead of configuring a product, you're searching for certain attributes. So in this case, we say, okay, I'm looking for laptops that have an Intel Celeron processor, 2 gigabytes of memory, 160 gigabyte hard drive, and it comes back and says, okay, well, we have 4 of those in the $466 to $700 range. You can then click on that and it would give you show you those laptops, and you can look through and decide which one you want. So that's basically what it looks like. Let me jump over here and show you, talk about a couple of things you need to do just to make sure that everything is set up for guided selling. And there are really three things, but the first two of them go together. And that is, guided selling has its own product configuration template. So, and I'll show you where those configuration templates are and kind of see what I mean. But there is a specific one for guided selling. You can use that to create new ones as well if you want to customize them, which I think a lot of organizations do. But you just want to make sure that you have a guided selling template set up and that it is enabled, right? It's just a checkbox, making sure it's active. The third thing you want to do is go into the application parameters. There's a specific parameter called catalog loading attribute based search, and that parameter has to be set to a certain setting, which is this one right here. It's called with detail parsing. It'll make a little more sense when I go into the demo, and you'll see what I mean, and we'll talk about why that is. So once you've set it up, then you can go in and create a guided search. So that said, I think probably the best way for me to show you how this all works is just to go straight into the demo. So let's take a look at what it all looks like. So let me go ahead and jump into my CPQ environment. Give me just a moment here. Make sure that I've got to the right page. There it is. Okay. So go ahead and log in. There we go. Make sure my caps lock isn't on. Okay, so at the moment, I don't have any guided selling turned on. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into setup and just make sure that I have a product configuration template set up. So for that, I'm going to go to setup and then just down to setup again. And all the product configuration templates can be found under the UI design menu. And down here, you'll see product configuration templates. So when you go in right now and create a product in setup, if you're using the user interface to do it, you'll actually be presented with these options, right? These choices, not the guided selling one, but the others. So that's why when you're creating a product and you go to here, let me go ahead and get him off. Get him onto mute so we don't have so much noise. Okay, I think we're good now. Sorry, what I was saying was that when you're configuring a new product and you go into the product layout area, these are the choices you're going to see. But what we want is guided selling. I don't see where that noise is coming from. That's weird. Thought he was muted. Okay. All right. So you'll see here that I have one already set up called guided selling. So what I want to do is, so I don't have to create a new one. I'm just going to open this one in edit mode and show you what it looks like. So the name of the template isn't really critical. It's probably a good idea to name it something that tells you this is a guided selling template. What really makes it show up as a guided selling template is to make sure that this box is checked right here. Right? If it's not, then it won't show up as an option when you're setting up guided selling. The important XSLT file, the only one you really have to worry about here is the second one, which is the responder. In fact, you can actually leave all the rest blank, because what will happen is if, for example, it's looking for the configurator XSLT and it doesn't see something, it just defaults over to the default one for product configuration, which is the 3-column one. But the responder XSLT is the one that is used specifically for the guided selling search. Now, we won't spend any time really looking at how the XSLT file makes it look the way it does, because that's really all UI design stuff, and it's usually handled by the branding team. But you can download this to an XSL file, create a new one based on it, maybe make some changes and some adjustments, create a new template, a new guided selling template up here, and upload that file. So it is possible to have more than one. You just want to make sure that when you do, you just give it a different template name and you make sure that guided selling template checkbox is checked. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and use the one that's already in the system. So I'll go ahead and save it. But before I do, does anybody have any questions just about this part and what we're doing here? And if not, if I ask for questions and I don't give you enough time, don't worry. Go ahead and just type your question in the chat window, and I'll catch it. Sorry, someone have a question? Yeah.
I had muted myself. I had a great question and nobody heard it.
Sorry.
No, that's right. Just to clarify for myself, that you did not have to create any of these XSLs. They're default ones in the system already that you can just use. But if you want to customize it, you can. Or did somebody have to create that?
Okay, you are right. That is an excellent question. Yes, the ones that are there are already default templates in the system. So you don't have to create a new one. Almost all organizations do, of course, because they want their branding to look different. So, and what usually ends up happening is the people on our side of things, right? We're really kind of more tasked with administering and implementing CPQ, but whereas, our organizations have branding teams that have the skills to do the customization. What we would do is we would take this and download it. Do you want to see what it looks like? And it's just an XSL file. It's nothing fancy. But...
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. Why not? So if I wanted to see this, I would download it, and I'm going to go ahead and just save it. And then when I save it, it's going to show up in my downloads file. I don't know what else is in there. There it is. And I like to, when I open this, since I don't have any real editing tools, I think I have XML editor. I just use Notepad+, and so it ends up looking like this. So you would make your changes, you would save them. So for example, in this case, I can just save it with a new name. We'll say save as, and we'll call this. I'll put it on the desktop. And we'll call it Guided Selling Search, new, something really fancy like that, and save it. And then what I would do, I can create a new template. Show you what this looks like. So I'll say add new. I'll give it a template name. We'll call this my guided selling template. Okay. And the template type is not really that key here. The important thing is that I check this box. I go to Responder XSLT, I upload that file, that one I just created, just browse to it, put it on the desktop. Let's see, where did I put that? Guided Selling Search, there it is. I say open, I upload it. I didn't like that. Of course it's going to give me an error. But let's see here. So here's another one that had been created earlier. So presumably if it decided it wanted to behave, I don't know why it did that. It would show up on this list. I would choose it, and then I would, whoops, didn't want to do that. I would just go down here and save it. So now I have two guided selling templates, which might be nice because you can see then how you have a choice when you're setting up the guided selling. So that's basically what it looks like.
All right, thanks.
All right, you're welcome. Anybody have any other questions? All right. Okay, so actually setting up guided selling itself. Very, very similar to setting up a product, a configurable product. What I want to do first is I want to show you how I want to show you what it is that I want to do here with my router search. So I'm going to get out of setup and into my catalog. So in my networking section, I have a category where I have all my routers, my little routers. So if I click on networking, there's my routers catalog. I have these 4 routers, and one thing I want to point out about these routers is they are simple products. They're not configurable, but they do have attributes. So for example, let's say that I'm looking at this Linksys Wireless G router. I just click on it, and it shows me that, okay, this one has an external antenna, data rate is 54 megabits per second, device management is web-based, it's a Linksys, and it has the standards are 8 or 2.3. So I could say, all right, that one's fine. Maybe I'll go back again to my list of routers and look through the others. And after a while I go, I want to see a list of all the routers that have 54 megabit per second data rates and have a web-based device management console. And I really don't care about the rest, but I just want to see a list of those so I can maybe do a price comparison. And the way this works is I will set up a guided selling search that's going to show up here in the upper right corner so I can pick and choose from those routers. The key here is that, let me go back into one of these again, that the guided selling search is going to contain all of the attributes that I want to search by. So maybe I'll search by antenna, data rates, and device management, maybe. So the way I'll do this is I'm going to go into Setup, and I'm going to go to my product catalog. And guided selling is under the product catalog. So when I say it's a lot like setting up a product, it's even in the same place. So I go to guided selling. And I'm going to create a new guided selling search and give it a name. So I'm going to click on Add New. And let's give it a name. So it looks just like setting up a product. It even says product data, pricing. It's all pretty much the same. So in this case, for the product name, I'm going to call this Find a Router. And you can give it a version, a description if you want to. Just like any other product, I have to give it a product type and I have to pick a category. The product type in this case, I'll just use network hardware. The category is going to be important because this is going to tell me where the guided search is going to appear. So I'm going to add it to the same category as the routers themselves. So I'm going to click on Add Remove. I'm going to go down to Networking, click that plus, and I'm going to click on Routers. So that way the guided search won't even show up until I get into the routers category. Let's go ahead and update that. And let's see, I don't think there's anything else here I need. Just like any other product, and I know some of you are going, well, gosh, Laura, I'm just getting started with this. I don't know what other products are, but, it all kind of ends up working together. But just like any other product, it has an area where you can set permissions. So I have mine set to visible to everyone. Careful with this, by the way, if you uncheck this, it makes it inactive, right? Just like making a product inactive, it will cause it to disappear from the screen. So if you know it's all set up and everything should be fine, but you can't see it, go into permissions and effectivity dates. Make sure it's active. Make sure it's visible to the groups it should be visible to. Pricing is similar, but as you can see, you can only add a pricing formula. There is no option for example, a default price or a price book when you're using guided selling. Let's see, I think I have everything else here set. I'm going to go ahead and save this, but I'm not done yet. Right? I still need to set up the attributes. So now I go to Product Attributes and Options, and this is where I tell the system which attributes I want to do a search by. So let's go ahead and start adding some attributes. So I'll start by adding the antenna attribute. So I'll just do a search. Actually, it's right here. So we'll go ahead and choose antenna. Hit Add. I'll add another attribute. I'll choose, the next one will be the data rates. So I'll click Add New Attribute. So these are attributes that are already in the system. They're used by the current routers. I'm just searching for them. Okay, there's data rates. And say Add. And then let's add one more. Let's add the data management. Or device management, rather. Sorry. I'll just search for device, and I think it'll find it. Here it is. Okay. So you can see here, I don't necessarily need to add all of the attributes that the router has. I just add the ones that I want people to be able to search by. Also, just like setting up a configurable product, I can go into each of these attributes and set the way that it displays. So for example, maybe instead of displaying as a drop-down, I want to show this as a checkbox. Checkbox is nice here because it allows the user to select more than one possible value. Like to say, well, I don't really care if it's an external or an internal antenna. I just want to, I'm really more concerned about the others. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to set all three of these to checkbox. Everything else I'm just going to leave at the default. So there's my antenna. Let's do the same thing for data rates. Let's say, again, I'm going to make that a checkbox. And I'll save that one. And let's do the same for the device management, whether it's web-based or console. Okay, so there's checkbox, and let's go back down here and save it. Okay, and that looks pretty good. Now, one more thing I'll show you here is under Configuration Layout. So I'm just going to click on Configuration Layout here. This is where you choose which template you're going to use. So this is what I was talking about with the layout template. Okay, there are the two that I set up, Guided Selling and My Guided Selling template. That's the one that I set up when I was doing a little demo. They're really both the same, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it with the default one, Guided Selling. So you can also do some other things here. Again, exactly like configuring a product. I can add, I can have different tabs that I can use. So, I could say, well, I'm really only interested in, I want to see the antenna on one tab and the data rates on another. But in this case, leaving them on one tab, I think will be okay. So let's go ahead and save this. And let's see what it looks like. Now, there is one thing about this that is a little weird. Preview and test doesn't really work the same with guided selling as it does with general products, because the whole idea is that you're not really going into a specific product. So it does work, but you have to go back to the beginning. So I find it's easier when I'm previewing this just to go back out of setup and try it that way. So I'm going to go back up here and exit setup. And let's see if this works. So I'm going to go to networking. Okay, so far no guided selling, right? Now I'm going to go to routers. Okay, and there it is. So now guided selling shows up. Now I know if you're looking at this and saying, wow, that button doesn't look very exciting. Keep in mind I'm working with the out-of-box user interface. A lot of the time, you'll change the name of the button, they'll change the branding. Everything can look very, very different. But what I would do here is click on guided selling and choose Find a Router. Remember, that's the name I gave it when I set it up. And it gives me an option to choose the antenna, the data rates, and device management. When I do this, I like showing price ranges. You can really do it either way, but let's say, for example, in this case, I don't really care about the antenna. I'll choose either external or internal, right? It shows all 4 products. Now, you can see here, I know it's very small, but it says 4 products match. And I can show the price ranges over here. There you go. That looks a little bit better. Or I can say View Products. Right? But at this point, it's just showing all of them, so that doesn't really help. So let's go back in. All right. So back to show price ranges. Let's say I only want to see routers that have data rates of 108 megabits per second. Okay, and it looks like now it only has one, right? It narrowed it down. So I can see that that product has this particular price range. I can check that. If I had them in multiple price ranges, I could check those as well. And then I could also do the same if I wanted to add that. Of course, right now I have everything chosen, so I'm going to see all 4 of them. But let's say also that I only want web-based device management, right? The other thing I could do is I could have unchecked those as well. So now I can see that I have my 2 routers available in that price range. I can check this guy, and now if I click on View Products, it now narrows it down to show the 2 that I like, and I can now just compare them side by side. So it's sort of like just an object comparison. So now I can say, all right, I think I like this one. I'm going to get 4 of them. I'm going to add that one to my quote. And so now I've just created a quote, just like I would have if I had selected an individual product from the catalog. So what guided selling did here was it just helped me make it easier for me to pick the right type of router so that I could move on with my day. So that is basically it. Everything else is really just customization that can be done the same way you would customize a product or customize the user interface. But really what I wanted to do here was to show you how we set up guided selling and get it going. So before I do the wrap up, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, this is Peter. I have 2 questions.
Yes.
When you turned on price ranges, it came up with 3 ranges. How is that defined? Why didn't it have every $10 as a price range, or 0 to 5,000 and there was only 1 price range? How did it pick 3?
Okay, that's a really good question. Let me jump back in here and I'll show you just so people know what he's talking about. Sorry, it wasn't in there. It was in, sorry about that. I got ahead of myself. It was, what he's talking about is over here when I'm going through and picking out these guys and I choose show price ranges. So it's basically giving this range right here. It is actually an algorithm that is on the back end. What it's doing is and I'm not entirely sure how the algorithm works. I don't even know if that information is public, but basically what it's doing is it's looking at the choices and determining realistic price ranges so that, for example, if there was a router that was below $19, it shows it changes according to the number of choices to make it so that it's easier to read and shows a realistic price range based on the products that are in the list.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about setting it up. It's magic, and that's fine. You don't have to worry about defining it yourself.
Basically, yes, that's right. It is. It's magic. It's CPQ magic, and that's right. And there was another question that came in via the chat that said, "Can we change the algorithm?" And the answer is no. I do not believe that the algorithm can be changed.
All right.
All right.
Now the second question.
Yes.
Totally unrelated to this.
All right.
If let's say you had 5 routers,
mm-hmm.
and you picked data rate 54 megabits per second.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming it would filter down to say there were 2 of the 5 that had that data rate.
Right.
So you'd only see those for choices. What if your either some or all of your routers were configurable, and either the defaulted value was not 54 bits or there was no defaulted value,
mm-hmm.
but 54 was selectable for some of them? Would it find the ones that you could configure to be 54, or does it only find things that have those values?
So it only finds the ones that have those values. In other words, so really one thing that you could say about guided selling is that it works for products that have attributes but are simple products. So are not configurable products.
Okay, thanks.
All right, good question. Great. You guys have good questions. Anybody have any other questions? Let's see here. Okay. So like I said, this is definitely a much shorter class than the others. But I do have a little bit of wrap up. So let's go back here, just do a little review. So it is pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of ins and outs to it, just because a lot of what we're doing is just has a lot of overlap with a lot of things we do anyway, right? So the wrap up is, and the one thing that's not on here is that guided selling is used for simple products with attributes, right? Like we saw here. It says it allows customers to conduct a more focused search, but it's not just for customers. In fact, a lot of the time where this tool is the most useful is for the salespeople, right? That gives them the ability to say, well, the customer told me that they need this, this, and this, and it helps them to find the right product to propose to the customer. So it could be customers or any other users based on attributes that already exist in the system. And if you remember, there were 2 settings. You know what? I just realized that there was one setting that I didn't show you, which was the application parameter. I need to show you that, so I'm going to go back. But enable the guided selling template. Let me show you that parameter, because this is important, and it's something that's very easy to miss. I'm going to jump back over into the system again, and I'm going to go back into setup mode. The parameter, close this, is down here. So those of you who are in the class I did yesterday, remember application parameters. They're under general and down under application parameters. And this is under the product catalog. So application parameters, product catalog down here. So you'll notice that there are these 3 application parameters toward the top that have settings that have to do with parsing. And the only one we're concerned with here is this one here. It's called Catalog Loading Attribute-Based Search. This was what I showed you at that slide at the beginning that talked about the setup. There are 5 choices here, right? And the choices have to do with how detailed the attributes of products are parsed when you are doing a search. Basically, that's what it means. The 5 choices go from less detail but faster to most detail but slowest, right? That's basically the idea here. And they're all hard-coded. You can't really change what these do. If you want to use guided selling, you need to have catalog loading attribute-based search set to at least with detail parsing, or anything with more detail, right? Full detail, no rules, or full detail parsing. If you have it set to either fast or with parsing, then the attributes are not parsed with enough detail in a search for guided selling to work accurately. So this is really important. So this is why we have that wrap-up slide. Also, don't forget with generic attributes, or sorry, with application parameters, that whenever you make a change, don't forget to go down to the bottom and hit save. So glad I caught that. Anybody have any questions about that before I move on?